This is the Griffin Podcast, episode number 89. We start in our seller plan with, why does the right price matter? Are you a home seller or a home buyer who has questions about selling or buying residential property? Or maybe you're an agent who needs a plan, but you can't find an easy way to get any of your answers? Well, then, hey, you are definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of The Griffin and the host of the Ask-A-Griffin podcast. Now, to help you take immediate action to get started in the right direction, if you're a seller, buyer, or agent, you can take advantage of our free step-by-step guides that are waiting for you at griffincourses.com. That's GRIFFIN courses.com. Okay, let's get started. We're in our seller plan, and the question on the table today is, why does the right price matter? And to clarify, the right asking price. So the first point here is to sellers directly and their mindset, that marketing does not trump price. And the reason that we get into this discussion here is because after many, many years of helping sellers, you'll often walk into a home and the first thing that they'll aggressively ask if they're on the offense when you arrive is, how are you going to market my home? I've had 4 or 5 agents in here and I want to know how you're going to market my home. Well, that's the equivalent of the tail wagging the dog if you're not ready to be professional in that conversation, because marketing is not more important than price. I mean, of course it's important, but it's not more important than price. And that leads to the second point. Well, why? Why can you say that with such authority to somebody who doesn't really know the inner workings of the business? Is because the real estate market is more driven by the price than you think. So what you don't know is that there are statistics that get generated. So think about the fact that every listing that's dealt with by a real estate agent who's a member of really what is the marketplace known as the multiple listing service. So if you've ever heard, as a seller or buyer or anybody who's just curious, the multiple listing service is a marketplace. So think like the stock market, but it's more disparate. They're broken down into little subsets across the United States, and Canada has more of a regional one, but they're broken down into little marketplaces. And the local real estate agent meets the local seller, and they agree to get into a contract to list the property. That property is then digitized. All of the details are digitized and memorialized, and they're uploaded to a multiple listing service. And then what happens is, all of that data and those statistics become part of a sale eventually. And so it tells us what actually happened in that microeconomic marketplace. So you have this plethora of data. I mean, an enormous amount of data gets generated from even one sale, let alone all the sales in a marketplace. And there are literally trillions and trillions of dollars worth of value. So that really could be termed big data. And for the local real estate agent who's doing anywhere from only 3 deals a year to 7, if you believe that the statistic typical even exists, it's really about 3 times a year they consummate one of these sales. And a lot of times they're not even on the sell side or the listing side, they're on the buy side. So we look to an industry with all this data, and we're just so underutilizing it. Now, there are a lot of tech companies that understood that big data was, to them, delicious. So the Zillows of the world, the Redfins of the world, all of these more tech-driven companies that are not real estate companies at the broker level. I mean, I know Redfin is, but essentially it's just a discount offering. But they got, especially Zillow, got more known for its algorithmic approach. So there's all this pricing data. Now, they tried to take that data and they tried to put it into an algorithm so they could tell you what the current value of your property was. Therein lies the rub, as Shakespeare would say. The challenge is such that there's so much data in a non-commoditized asset. Okay, that was a big term. Let me break it down in layman's or layperson's terms, right? What I would tell you is that what that means is that one house is very different from the next, even if it's the same model and you live in an area where there's big tract housing in the middle of the U.S. or in the southern states, they're still very different. And those variables, those qualitative variables versus quantitative variables cannot be seen. So the local realtor who's good at what they do locally can make those adjustments based on location, immediate condition, etc. So there's a lot going on there. So all of this data exists, and it serves historically for us to look at and analyze. We need to take a look at that, analyze that data, and come up with a good asking price. Because a good asking price is the trump card. Like I said, think about this for a second. If you egregiously overprice any property for sale, you shut the market off. So you have to go to an extreme to really buy into this to understand it. If I have a property that's probably going to sell in and around $1 million, but I just decide, what the heck, let's put it out there for $2 million. I have basically shut the marketplace off. And I could be really great at marketing. I could have all the digital pictures taken. I could have a Matterport tour done. I could have a wonderful writer write up all of it. I could make brochures. I could put it in every magazine. It's not going to trump that ridiculous price. Because somebody that can spend the $2 million is going to see really what is the benefits and features of $1 million property for $2 million. They're going to go down the street and buy something else as long as there's enough inventory at $2 million that even exists. Okay, there's your extreme to frame this. Okay, now again, price and marketing are intertwined. There's no doubt about it. But I'm talking about why the price matters first. Because the third point here is that your pricing analysis, and I'm talking starting off with an asking price, but this should start with a good realtor well in advance of ever listing the property. So your pricing analysis should never be taken lightly. Never. I mean, it's work. You don't just print out a bunch of properties and throw a dart at a price, or you don't just listen to what the seller does and makes it up without evidence to support it. Shame on the realtors who take a listing that is far overpriced or overstates something without taking analysis of the asking price seriously, because you're actually doing damage not just to that seller, but you're also putting a dent in the marketplace. And how do I know this is a problem as a 22.5-year veteran of this business? Because the phenomenon of the expired, canceled, and withdrawn listing has never gone away. Now, there are many variables why something cancels, expires, or withdraws, but I can tell you in my personal experience as an expert in coming in and cleaning up those situations, oftentimes it was a very subtle tweak to the price that made a major difference in the traffic that came there. Now, the little bonus section to taking pricing analysis seriously is that nobody in the real estate business is that perfect. Whether it's an algorithm helping you, it's the agent, nobody's that perfect that you always get it just right. Now, oftentimes in a rising tide where the market's white hot, you don't have to be probably as good. You have to be careful not to overprice it and let somebody do something really ridiculous because the tide is rising into it. But if you outpace it, the market's still chasing you and you can expire in a really good market. Again, I know this because as of this recording, I am an expert at expired listings in one of the best markets that my marketplace has ever seen. Let that sink in. So what we also tell our sellers is that you should continue throughout the listing process to constantly analyze the price because a marketplace is moving. Even though real estate pricing might move a little bit slower than, say, a commodity price, right? A barrel of oil could boom like that. If you've been watching the news lately, when you see this podcast, the timing of me delivering this, oil prices have been very volatile and have moved very quickly. Also, the stock market and the interest rates, the mortgage rates have moved dramatically quickly within weeks, days, over a point in just a couple of weeks. So, point being 1%. So the idea is you have to constantly be analyzing where that price is at, especially in volatile markets, okay? So let me go back and say, this is the first point in our seller plan. It begs the question, why does the right price matter? And the first point is because the right price trumps marketing, and that seems to be this constant source of confusion for sellers that marketing overweighs price. It's not true. Two, the real estate market is a lot more price-driven than you think it is. And by the way, one thing I'll just mention there quickly, all you have to do look at the properties that are successful and that sell, you can see how price sensitive they are because you can see the sold to the final asking price. Oftentimes, the percentage from that sold price to the final asking, once it's been tweaked right, is very small. So there's no giving it away when you tweak your price. Last, pricing analysis should never be taken lightly and should continue throughout the entire listing process to make sure you're constantly making a market for that. By the way, just a little pro tip there, because I already gave you a pro tip, was that oftentimes once I get an offer on a property and we counter it, if I see that the seller was willing to counter significantly below where we're asking, say you have to lower that price because that invites even more buyers in. Because in the sweet spot, there's a lot more buyers. When you can find the sweet spot by tweaking a price, you find a lot more buyers. And that has nothing to do with marketing, okay? Nothing. That's all price driven. All right, let me summarize it this way. Many home sellers have a perception of the way a property is sold. That perception often overweighs the importance of marketing. While marketing plays a critical role, pricing a property correctly is the most important factor in a successful sale. The right price will overcome poor marketing. However, even the greatest marketing will never overcome the wrong price. All right, remember, you can take immediate action to get started in the right direction if you're a seller, buyer, or agent who wants help by getting a copy of our free step-by-step guides that are waiting for you at griffincourses.com. That's Griffin courses.com. Also, don't forget, you can subscribe to this podcast right here on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. We also post our content on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the Griffin channel. We'd also appreciate it if you would share our content with home sellers and buyers or real estate agents so that they all get the help that they need. But remember this, we sign off the same way every time on all our podcasts. Remember that nobody is coming for you. Nobody. So you have to take action and get to work on your plan for buying or selling property, or becoming a more successful real estate agent. And we will see you in the next episode to help you do just that. Thanks again.